Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, Director of Sales for Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training, the Bona Training. How you doing this morning?
Doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
Good.
I'm coming off a pretty good weekend. Well, actually good and bad. You know, one of our cats, I'm a little bit concerned that might have to put it down. I don't want Judy to be, but it lost a lot of weight. So that was kind of not good this weekend. So I just realized that he's getting to be really skin and bones, and he is the most affectionate cat I have ever seen in my life. I mean, he is a lover, man. And when he wants affection, there's no turning back. I mean, you cannot not give him affection. And so anyhow, so hope that goes good.
I think it's so crazy you're a cat person. That's a right.
I really say that I'm not. I'm really a dog person. I really truly am a dog person. I told you we took in my sister-in-law's dog. I don't know if I told you that, because my sister-in-law passed away, and long story, she had a bunch of animals. Well, we kept one of the dogs. The dog's 14 years old, and it's damn near deaf, okay? And it has the worst breath of any living creature I have ever been around in my life. You can't even be in the same room with it. It's crazy, man. So
Is
anyhow,
it sick?
No, it's just 14 years old, and I don't know. I'll tell you what, though, I've never seen an animal so obsessed with food in my life. I mean, she's thin. She's not like she's overweight at all. Although now I'm feeding it whatever she wants to eat, because she was an athlete for most of her life. I mean, she was a champion, a border collie, whatever they do. But now in her advanced stage, I don't care what, I give her whatever she wants to eat. And so she's happy, but man, she's a mess. So anyhow, but I have to say, I went to, I got to see, give you a highlight. I got to see Chris Stapleton over the weekend, and that was a great concert.
You went to his live show.
Yep.
Are you one of those people that, you like dancing? You stand up, do you sit down, or are you up dancing?
No, I'm only comfortable dancing at home in front of Whiskers.
Whiskers, is that what the cat's name is?
No, that's the dude that takes care of the cats when I'm on the road. Yeah, it's Whiskers. It's a cat. No, I don't. I'm not. You know something. Here's what happened in life to me in dancing. I'll never forget. We were at the NCO club in England. Okay, me and my three brothers, and it's the first time we've been around the live music and people are dancing. And my mom goes, "Why don't you just go dance?" Now, first of all, what are we gonna dance with each other? I mean, what a stupid thing to say. You know what I mean? And
big sword fight out there, dancing.
Yeah, easy. Then my mom says, "Listen, go out and dance, and I'll give you a dish of ice cream. You can have an ice cream for dessert." Okay, so look, I will do a lot of things for food, and I thought, well, how bad can this dancing thing be? You know, I mean, I get some ice cream. You know, I look at other people out there, and so I get up to go, and all my brothers are going, "You sissy, you sissy." So I think it might have been the last time I ever danced, because the whole time I danced, I'm seeing my brothers laughing at me. But I came back and I got ice cream.
You got the ice cream out of it.
Yeah, but my mom gave everybody ice cream. See, that's not right.
Well, that's terrible.
Exactly.
That's not right.
No,
unless you got a second bowl or something. But
yeah. So anyhow,
there's a word. I'd like to see that word come back. Sissy. That's a good one. Just cuts right to the chase. You call another guy a sissy.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
Well, it's fighting words, especially back in the day.
Back in the day, right? Sissy was
in the trades. You call someone a sissy. It's just not good. You call things a lot of things. You ever been messing with some, like I had a guy one time, he and I were having words, you know, it was getting escalated. And he cut me down so good that I had to go, you know, that's pretty good.
I like
I,
that.
I can't even be mad at that.
There you
That's
go.
pretty good.
What'd he
Yeah.
say?
I can't remember now. I can't remember what it was. I could think about it and I'd come up with it, but I can't remember it now. All right, Rob, I'm going to talk about what's lurking below. Okay, the concrete, and I just want to talk about concrete a little bit, and I want to talk about some of the things that happen before a contractor shows up, a flooring contractor shows up on a job, and leaves him very vulnerable. That we don't really talk about when we talk about concrete. We really all we kind of talk about, oh, is the moisture high or is it not high, and that's it, and that's kind of on a cursory level, and that's all we really talk about. So I want to talk about really kind of what happens on a job site. Um, a lot of this comes from my experience as a construction laborer, and at the time, doing floors was the last thing on my mind. I was a young, dumb kid and worked as a laborer and what have you. But so I just want to go over a couple things. When they know they're going to place concrete, it goes like this: you have the subsoil base, okay. On top of that, you put a filter mat, and on top of the filter mat, you put what they call a capillary break. All right, which is basically a lot of stone, a lot of like rocks, a layer of rocks. Okay, I'll tell you about that reason for that, and that's very important, actually, super important. But I'll tell you a reason why for that in a minute. And on top of that, you have the other amount of soil, and then you have your vapor retarder on top of that. Okay, so the reason you put that stone in there, and then it's called a capillary break, is that the capillary action in under the concrete is actually very strong and is super important. To give you an example of that, and reason what happens is, if you just remember that wet always goes to dry. Okay, if you were to take if you had a spill, if you had water on a counter right now, and you took a paper towel and you set it in there, you notice how the paper towel, the water just keeps going and going and going into that paper towel. Okay, it's kind of the same principle. And the same, actually, another way of looking at it, if you look at a tree and it takes the moisture from the roots and how it draws it up into the rest of the tree. Well, it's the same type of principle, and that can get into the concrete. So if you put that layer of rocks in there in aggregate, it kind of stops that process from happening. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of cuts that off. Okay, so now you put the vapor barrier down, moisture retarder. But there's three different classes. There's an A class, B class, and C class. The C class is really easy to puncture. So a flooring contractor would have no idea if it was placed properly and taped off properly and all that. They would have no idea, and it makes a huge difference because they can absolutely get punctured, and sometimes intentionally. And I'll tell you about that later. I hope I don't forget. So then you place the concrete. Okay. Now, one of the most important things that happens at that point is that there's a water to cement ratio. Okay, a certain amount of water is necessary for concrete to start the hydration process, basically that binds all the concrete together, right? But there's more. You need more water in there, and it's for workability purposes. Okay, so you have to have more water in there so the concrete is the guys can float it and work it and all that stuff. That's called water of convenience or free water. Okay. But that decision, that the water to cement ratio, is the biggest factor determining how long that concrete is going to take to dry. Okay, we say concrete takes 28 days to cure, but it may actually never not start drying until 45 to 90 days afterwards. Okay, so that water to cement ratio is important. Now, the next thing that is very
Well,
important.
back up. Let me ask you a question. So, finish dries and then it cures, but concrete cures and then it dries.
Concrete curing and drying is totally different. I mean, concrete can continue to hydrate the life of it as long as there's water, as long as there's moisture there. Okay, but you need to have a certain amount of moisture in there, water in there, for it to hydrate, and that hydrate process is what binds all the concrete. And concrete is gravel, it's dirt, it's gravel, it's sand, it's Portland cement and water. Okay, the water binds it all together. Okay, So it's inbound. There's a certain amount of more water that you have to have in concrete, but you have to be concerned about the other water that's in there, the water of convenience. Okay, the free water that
The
has
free
to,
water.
yeah,
The free water.
you want that to get out. Okay,
Okay.
so after that cement to water ratio, the next important thing that can come along to affect the contractor, and this is another huge one. Okay, there's two big factors so far, and it's how the concrete is cured. Okay, there's three ways they can do it. One, and I've done all three of these methods on jobs, is you continually wet that slab. You have to. It's for the hydration process. You don't want that to dry out too fast and everything. It could crack and what have you. So you have to continually wet that slab. Okay. Well, you can imagine that's adding more water into that slab that's going to have to dissipate. Okay. That's not really great for us. The second thing is they could take curing compound. You can spray it with curing compounds. Okay, and that traps the moisture in there. The problem is it works really, really well, but the slab doesn't start to dry out until that is removed. Okay, and that has to be removed by probably more likely shot blasting. Okay, which is added expense, and again, it's not really drying out until you do that. So that's when the clock starts ticking more. The third way, which is the best way, is they put burlap sacks onto the concrete or plastic. Okay, and you just use enough water to keep it hydrated, but you're not soaking into living daylights out of it. Okay, so had they do the first or second process, it's going to really add time to the amount of water that's going to be in that concrete when you get there. The next thing that comes along is the rewetting of the slab. Okay, so let's say it's exposed to the environment, right? And it gets rained on. Let's say the relative humidity is very high, so that's all adding moisture to the job site and to the slab. Now you have all the wet trades that come in. Okay, so that also is a big factor in how much moisture and water is going to be in that slab. So what then usually happens is if you're lucky enough then to turn the HVAC on, it cracks me up where they say, okay, hey, Wayne, or whoever the contractor is, we've had the HVAC on for a week, so you should be ready to go. That's really laughable. That's not enough to dry out that slab. What you really need to dry out a slab is you need heat, and you need low relative humidity air blowing across the surface of the slab continuously. Okay, that's the quickest way to dry off the slab.
Dry, warm air.
Dry, warm air. Yeah, continuously blowing across that slab. So if they had cured it properly or cured it in the best way, if they had used a low water to cement ratio to begin with, those things would be on the contractor's side. Okay. But we don't know that. Nobody's ever said, here's what the slump ratio is, or we're not in those conversations. So the next thing that comes along is, okay, now we have to test to see what the moisture is. Okay. Well, let's take a calcium chloride test. You really need, if you're not at ambient temperature and relative humidity of when the home is being occupied, that test is really not of any use. Okay. You want to make sure that you are of living conditions, and relative humidity is about where it's going to be. But here's the interesting thing. If you do a calcium chloride test on a slab that has never had floor covering on it, and you're going to get a result back, right? A numerical result back. If on that same slab, you put down floor covering for 7 days or 10 days or whatever, like a rubber pad or something like that, and do a calcium chloride test on it, you're going to get a much higher result in that calcium chloride test. The reason for that is when you put a floor covering on top of a slab, the moisture in that slab starts to redistribute, okay? And that gives you more of probably an accurate reading of what's going on. Because the calcium chloride test only reads like the first half inch of that slab. Now, to do the RH test, the reason why we do an RH test is the RH is the best indicator of how much moisture is really going on in that slab. And you drill 40% down into the depth of that slab. The reason why you drill 40% down into the depth of that slab is because they know that there's going to be a floor covering on that slab, and they figure that is kind of the intersection of where the moisture is going to be actually when you have the slab covered. Okay, that amount of moisture is in there. It's kind of a better read on what's going on. So I just thought, we don't we talk about doing testing and what have you, and we really don't, there's, like I said, I think if we knew more about concrete and what we were up against in the front side, it might change the way we look at things.
So
So
let me ask you a question. The RH probe, when you said you don't know what people are doing to concrete by the time you get there,
mhm.
is the RH probe going to tell you, give you a little bit better look at what they did?
It won't necessarily tell you what they did, but it'll damn sure tell you where that slab is at as far as moisture, way better than any other test. But again, to expect that I don't have to turn on, and it's the same thing as wood flooring. They actually, concrete and wood are very similar. When you pour a concrete slab, and that moisture starts to draw out of there and what have you, a slab can curl from loss of moisture, which I'll get into just really shortly, because they should almost expect that you're going to have to do something to that slab, some leveling, some grinding, because when they curl, it doesn't necessarily affect us as much with wood as it does like VCT or those type of things. But here's what can happen. Let's say the concrete is poured and it's nice and flat, and maybe you do some grinding on it, right? And because maybe it curled, you grinded everything, you get it flat. Maybe you have some construction joints in there, and you fill those now, okay? And then you go, okay, it is absolutely flat, beautiful. Let's put this flooring on. Well, when they put the flooring on, and that moisture in that slab starts to redistribute, now what can happen is it can, that areas you flatten and everything, now the moisture is coming back up, and those joints that you filled, you can blow that off the slab. So it's kind of a catch-22. So
Hold on a second. I want to stay with this testing.
okay.
Because when I'm in Canada, I have to do the adhesives portion because that's what we do in Canada. When I was going over testing, 2 of the 3 guys who do test, and one guy was a concrete guy who wants to get into the flooring business too. They both used Tramex meters.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. So there's 2 types of tests. One is what they call a qualitative test, and one is a quantitative test. A quantitative test is the calcium chloride test and the RH test, because they give you a numerical value. Okay, they're recognized as being a quantitative test. A qualitative test would be like a pin meter, a rubber mat test, where you put a rubber mat down for so many days, you pull it up, you say, okay, underneath it the slab is turned dark, which indicates there's moisture. There's actually value in both tests, but the real test that's recognized, I mean, you do have to do a quantitative test, but there is value in a Tramex meter. And I don't want to misspeak on Tramex, because I believe they came out with a new meter that does RH testing and stuff like that. It looked very impressive. I didn't really have a good chance to look at it, but the type of meters you set on top of the slab, that's a quantitative test. Excuse me, a qualitative test. It just gives you and they're valuable because they can also tell you where to put the calcium chloride test and everything. They if they read a little high, that's okay. Well, let's do a test here. So there is value to those type of tests.
Okay. Now I just saw you look at your door. Like, did your masseur or masseuse just leave?
Well, I didn't know if housekeeping was going to come in. I put the
No, but I mean, you always get a masseur when you're out of town. Did you get a masseuse or a masseur?
yeah. What is the female version of that? Is that the masseuse?
I think that's a
Yes.
masseuse.
Yes, that was what I would get. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's
You
not
tipper?
happening.
You a good tipper?
No, I am a great tipper, a really good tipper. Although I'm annoyed about tipping. I'm super annoyed about this culture that we have about tipping in America now. It's crazy. But yes,
Well, I like how they just turn the machine to you now.
I
You
know.
the thing, like,
Yeah,
you're gonna,
yeah.
you see?
And without even saying thank you or whatever and I like them that they start at 18 and 22, 25, and then a special one. Are you gonna get more special than 25?
Yeah. I'm here to pick
For
the
hand
order up. You
for
didn't do
hand.
anything.
Oh,
I'm picking an order up.
let me tell you a worse one
I'm
than
just
that.
picking up.
Listen to this. And this one that actually really made me mad. And if I was there, I would have said something to the manager. We bought a gift certificate for a couple, and it's for $100 or whatever. Okay, it's in a restaurant, whatever. Now that I think of it, $100 sounds kind of cheap for a couple at a restaurant, but that's neither here nor there.
That's
But
insane. That's plenty.
okay, thank you,
That's
you.
$100.
Yeah, okay, but so we buy the gift certificate for $100. The lady turns the thing around for the tip. For what? We paid the tax. So okay, $100.
You were buying a gift certificate.
Yeah.
And she wanted a tip.
Yes.
For buying a gift certificate.
Yeah. So let me
I
see.
gotta say, I'm a great tipper.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm not tipping on that one.
Yeah. I
and now everybody's gonna think, you're cheap, but come on.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. Okay, we pay the tip on it now, which is like a tax. The people pay another tip when they eat the dinner. We're taxed on the $100, but now it's like a $70 value of you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Where was I?
The masseur just left. Or
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The masseuse.
Masseuse. Yeah. How dare you?
Yeah. Masseuse.
Yeah.
So I hope we're right on that.
Yeah. I don't care. I've only given into massages. I'm not a massage guy.
Have you ever had one?
Yes. Yeah.
Professionally?
Yes. Well, what? Yes. Yes.
You just snorted.
Sorry about that.
You just snorted on.
Yeah, I know.
So was it a girl or a guy?
Oh my gosh, both. Okay, I'll tell you real quick. Wait a minute. First, I was.
They double teamed you.
No. Okay, so first, I have. It's like I was probably about 35 at the time, and I don't know what I did in my back. My back was killing me. So Judy goes, just go to the doctor, whatever. And then there's a physical therapist there, and so she gave me a massage. So like 2 or 3 times I went. There was a same girl there every time, right? Nice massage. Okay, I went there the last time. She wasn't there, and this monster was there. I mean, this dude tried to kill me. I've never shrieked in agony before, but I was damn close to it. I almost had tears in my eyes. This dude was trying to kill me, so I never went back. Like, what kind of place does something like this? They sucker you in.
Saying the word shriek is kind of sissy.
I know. I fully admit that. I think it was appropriate for the conversation. Okay. So where are we at now?
We are just wrapped up in the Tremex meter.
Okay, yeah, and testing. So now, here's the thing. In America, manufacturers are saying, okay, we can give you an unlimited warranty. Certainly, Bona has an unlimited warranty with our flow adhesive. Okay, other manufacturers do as well. And by the way, in Europe, they think we're out of our minds for offering unlimited warranties. They just think it's reckless. Okay. We offer unlimited warranty. I'm still, and I would say that
that's Europe, okay? That's how we roll in the States.
Yeah, we don't care.
We go big.
Yeah,
they should know that by now.
Yeah, believe me, they do. So we offer unlimited warranties on flow. Other manufacturers, that's not new to this industry. A lot of people do. But I'm still going to say this, and I'm going to say this. I would say this because I've done floors for 30 years. I say this because I've been in this trade another additional 12 years after that. That's 42 years of seeing floors. Nobody wins in a claim, least of all the contractor. So I still think, like I said, I don't care who I'm working for. I'm just going to call it like I see it. I still think that it's smart to do testing, and I don't care what anybody else says. I'm venture to say if I was in a room full of 30 inspectors, every one of them would say you should test. Okay, and here's the way I liken it. The speed limit out there on the freeway is 70 miles an hour. Okay, I'm pretty sure a Corvette will do 140, 150. I'm pretty sure the Mercedes has one that'll do 140 or 150 or 160 miles an hour too. And Porsche probably the same. And I don't see the sales reps for the Corvette go, you know what? Don't even worry about that 70 miles an hour, man. We can do 150. Okay. So take that curve at 150 miles an hour. We can do every bit of that. I just think if they were not car dealer reps, but adhesive people or whatever, and it's in our industry, that's what they'd be saying instead of saying, no, go 70 miles an hour, be on the safe side. I think because it's too cavalier. It's too the contractor is the one that is the most affected. And I think you should look at every job. When you look at a job, I think you should look at the job and say to myself, can I afford to eat this job? And that should drive everything. I think we have to in this industry start as an entire industry taking the responsibility or actually taking less responsibility. The onus is left, I mean, almost how dare all the general contractors and everybody else say, you need to go no matter what, because this is the time period, blah, blah, blah. It should be that you get that ready for me. You show me what RH says is acceptable to you. You know what I mean? We take on a lot of liability. And here's the other thing. I told you about the plastic and what have you, and I told you about how important the water to cement ratio is. When I was a construction laborer, and I know I've said this before, so I'm going to say this quickly. I placed concrete most every day or every week rather when I was when I was a laborer. And it's a very typical scenario that happened more times than I can tell you. Let's say we're pouring concrete on Thursday. Monday it's raining. It's been raining all weekend. It's raining Monday. It's raining Tuesday. It's raining Wednesday. Thursday is going to be beautiful out. Okay. When we get there to do our job on a Thursday, we're standing on that moisture barrier that's been soaked with water. There's water on top and water everywhere. So let's say we don't do anything but place the concrete on top of that. Still, we've just added a tremendous amount of water into that mix. And where's it going to go? Okay. Or two, and this is what happened time after time, we would pick up stakes and start poking holes in the plastic to let the water absolutely to let the water run out.
Yep.
And it was not malicious. It was just dumb laborers. We didn't know. Our job was to get that concrete done, and whatever made our life easier. And it wasn't malicious at all, but that's the way it was done, and that's not the end of it. Then we would drop the chutes down from the concrete truck, right? And concrete is going around in that truck, and it starts sliding down the chute, and it's slower than death. And it's August, and it's hot, and that concrete is heavy, and it's hard to move. And we're staring at it like we're ready to go. It is taking too long. Inevitably, somebody would jump up in the truck, take the garden hose, and start spraying water into that mix. Okay, so it may have left wherever that concrete truck came from with a proper water to cement ratio.
Mix perfect, right?
But not when we got done with it. So what would we do? We created very porous concrete, and we underneath that moisture barrier is an infinite supply of water, an infinite supply. How would the contractor know any of this? You know what I mean? So I think that also it tells me that I would, if we say, okay, this amount of adhesive is good or whatever, I would oftentimes probably go to the maximum. I would go for the unlimited and work it into the bid. It's easier to have that conversation on the front side than on the back side. Because here's your choices. You can do your moisture test, and you can say, okay, we need to wait because it's not ready yet. Well, oftentimes we know we're going to get laughed out of the job, because one of the worst things that happen to us as a trade is fast track construction. Okay. So you can say we have to wait. Well, a lot of times they're turning these homes over in 90 days. There's no waiting. It's not going to happen. Number two is we can say, okay, we need to bring in the low RH fans, blow fans on here, and we can turn the heat on, and that will help. No question, that will help. Or three, but the problem is we don't know how long it's going to take, right? Or three, we can understand that we should do the moisture mitigation into the bid, and plan on putting down, like they're using the 540 and using the adhesive with the unlimited moisture, use that amount of adhesive. I still think number 2 is a good step no matter what. The fans, I think it's a fantastic step to do that. But I think that's the best way you have to defend yourself. And I think that I don't know. Like I said, we say you don't need to test. Other manufacturers say you don't need. Everybody that Unlimited says basically you don't have to test. I would say this again, no matter who I work for. I just know that much about wood, and I know that much about the trade and the industry. I've seen so much that it tells me that this makes sense to me. People will say, well, Wayne, there's a labor shortage. I don't have time to run out there and do a test. And I think that that is the very reason you need to go out there and do a test, for 2 reasons. One, you don't have time for this callback, and you don't want this smoke, as they say. But the second reason is, I'm going to get that. If I'm bidding this job and I'm bidding against other people and they're not testing, then I'm going to get that bid, because I'm going to explain how important this is that I'm doing this test right now. And I'm going to say, if I don't do this test and everything I do afterwards is guessing, and it's just going to make me look so much more professional than the next guy. And by the way, and this is important too, if you're dealing with a GC on the job and the homeowner or whatever, I give everybody a copy of the results of that test. Because if there's an issue and you say, I moved forward with this, and this was the test results, did you share them with anybody? No, I just took it upon myself to say that it was go. Just because people get dragged into these things, I would make sure everybody has a copy of the test results. If you are uncomfortable doing these type of tests or whatever, and you don't do a lot of them, whatever, you hire a third party to do them. I actually think that's pretty smart, because they don't have a dog in the fight. That third party is not going to say yes, go, or don't go. They're just going to say, here's the results of the test. And
I have a good buddy of mine in New York City. He's a gym guy, and that's who does all of his testing.
yeah,
No matter what, because he's installing gyms, and it goes back to something that I really like what you said. You have to look at a job and say, can I afford to eat this job? Boy, if more people started looking at things like that, that's the last corner they would want to cut. But that's exactly what he does. He goes to a third party. They come in. I don't know what he pays them, whatever it is. They come in, and all the paperwork is right there. He gives that to the contractor. He gives that to anybody involved in it. Like, here it is. Here's all the paperwork. Now we can go.
yeah. And that way you can say there was a meeting of the minds. You know what I mean? That so you're not out there by yourself, because if you didn't share it with anybody, then, well, you made the call and unilaterally and what have you. So anyhow, I just think it makes sense. So there you go. Like I said, I would say this. Listen, my whole career, the reason why I went to every NWFA school, the reason why I went to inspector school, the reason why I did all these things, is because I was motivated by fear. That is the 100% driving force in my career. I was afraid that, one, I would get called to do a job that I didn't know how to do. Like someone say, one of my good customers say, hey, I need you to do a chevron floor or a herringbone floor, and I didn't know how to do it. That always nagged at me. Like, I don't want to ever be in that position. 2, I don't like to be wrong, because when you're wrong, you're just wrong. And that's a bad place to be.
Oh, you've never been wrong.
I have. So I think that in 3, I never wanted to eat a job like that. I didn't, and so that's why I was motivated. I figured I didn't have the time. I would be mortified, first of all, to everything about my business. And I don't have the time to go back. I mean, the worst feeling in the world is I have to drop back and redo this job, when I could be on the other side of town making a lot of money on this job. So not only am I not getting the money on this job, I'm having to lose money on this other job. And we don't have, there's not 20 crews out there anymore. You only have so many guys to make you your money. I mean, the days of having those, they're few and far between now. So your time to me is more precious than ever. It's a good thing. I mean, there's opportunity there. I mean, you can charge more money and what have you, and those are good things. But what you can't have is you can't have the failures. And so I'm just trying to keep people out of getting themselves in a tough situation. I will also want to say this too, while I'm thinking about it, is the CSP of a slab, the concrete surface profile. You know, they measure it from say 1 to 9 or 1 to 10, who you talk to, whatever. But you know, you got to have a slab that is not too smooth that will accept the adhesive, that adhesive will grab to it. And I think most people know that. But what I've seen a few times, if someone says, "Oh yeah, no, we go in there, we grind the concrete, we sand the concrete," but they're really polishing that concrete so much that they're almost putting a surface profile on there that is like that's not acceptable. It's too smooth. So just be aware of that. That when you prepare the slab, and also when I talked about curing compounds on there, or if the concrete is too smooth, you can do a simple test that's still effective. It's just pour water droplets on that slab and see if it wets out, or if it just stays sitting on that slab in a like a bubble or whatever. It gives you an indication of that there's something on there. And by the way, if you do have to shot blast, let's say you have when I said that a slab might have curing compounds on it, you have to shot blast that off there. But that's when you need to do your testing, not before. You can do it before, whatever, but the real test is after you shot blast that slab is when you should do your testing, because that will change the moisture dynamic in that slab and some other things about it. So that's when you want to make sure you do your test off of that surface. Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, perfect.
I don't think any of this, don't think of yourself as a sissy if you're doing all this testing.
No, you can't.
This is just being smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know you said you're, the one thing that you're scared of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be scared of being a sissy.
That's different than being a regular sissy.
Absolutely. Calcium chloride, when you do your tests, you should do them in a couple of them. Actually, well, probably everybody knows it's 3 per 1,000 square feet, and then 1 per every 1,000 square foot after that. But put some towards the outside walls where you would expect more moisture, and then some in the center also. So just and I'd put a newspaper down there. It's a paper trail. You know what I mean? That this is when I did my testing or what have you. So. All right. So
a newspaper with the date, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, just because you like reading the newspaper while you're waiting on the test.
Yeah.
Of course, with the date. Yeah. So anyhow, what's going on with that child in the background? Is it being tortured?
Pauline, you can hear that, can't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping that they can drown it out or something, but she's just the cutest thing, though. You can't. She's learning how to talk. Nobody can understand her, but she's nonstop talking.
No kidding. That's
complete
nice.
Gibberish. It's a riot.
That's sweet.
It's sweet until she starts doing this.
Yeah.
Because she's so aggravated, nobody really knows what she wants.
Okay.
She knows what she wants. She's going to town.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob. Well, the only thing I'm going to add to this episode is I know they're announcing the Floor of the Year winners. I know a couple guys that won already, so I'm excited for them. We'll talk. Well, maybe we'll have some guests on that won Floor of the Years this year. So we'll stay tuned for that. That'll be kind of cool to talk to those. I'm excited.
That'll be fun. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, there you go. This has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.